It was the year 1984, and the world was buzzing with excitement. The music industry was alive with new sounds and fresh talent, but two names were shining brighter than most. Michael Jackson, the undisputed king of pop, and his younger sister, Janet Jackson, who was quickly becoming a star in her own right. Michael had already set the world on fire with his groundbreaking album Thriller, while Janet had released her album Control, and her career was beginning to soar. The scene was set for a very special event. A prestigious charity gala was being held in Los Angeles, bringing together the biggest names in music, film, and fashion. The gala was a glamorous affair, with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and tables filled with well-dressed guests. Music was playing softly in the background as people mingled and chatted, enjoying the evening. Behind the scenes, however, the energy was electric. Janet and Michael, along with other celebrities, were preparing for the event. But it wasn't just the guests who were eager to see the stars. There was also a lot of backstage excitement, where whispers of a potential dance-off between Janet and Michael began to spread. It started out casually, as many great ideas often do. The backstage area was filled with dancers and choreographers working with the stars, rehearsing for the night's performances. Janet and Michael happened to bump into each other in the hallway, both excited about the event but also clearly focused on their own performances. As they spoke, the topic of dance came up. Both Janet and Michael had become well known for their extraordinary dance moves. Michael was already a legend, with his iconic moonwalk and slick choreography that had won the hearts of fans all over the world. Janet, though younger, had developed her own unique style, sharp, precise, and full of energy. She had the same passion for dance as Michael, and although she was still carving out her own place in the industry, she was determined to make her mark. One of the dancers, in an attempt to break the ice, joked, "You know, Janet, your moves are almost as good as Michael's. Maybe you should face off with him and see who's the better dancer." The comment was made lightly, almost as a fun observation. But it quickly caught the attention of those around them. Janet laughed, brushing off the comment. But Michael, ever the competitive spirit, raised an eyebrow. "You think she can take me?" he asked playfully, a smile creeping onto his face. The challenge was on. At first, it seemed like a joke. But as more people gathered around, the energy shifted. Others started to encourage the idea. And soon enough, the talk of a dance-off between the two siblings spread like wildfire. The buzz grew louder, with whispers and excited chatter filling the air. Could Janet really compete with Michael? Would Michael, the king of pop, be able to handle the competition from his own sister? The thought of seeing the two Jacksons face off in a dance battle was too thrilling to ignore. Janet, always up for a challenge, felt a spark of excitement. She wasn't one to back down from anything, especially not when it came to something she loved so much, dance. Michael, on the other hand, was known for being fiercely competitive. He had spent his life perfecting his craft, and while he had nothing but love and respect for Janet, he wasn't about to let his younger sister outshine him. The challenge, though lighthearted at first, was quickly becoming a serious and thrilling prospect. But even as the idea took hold, there was a sense of hesitation in the air. Michael had been in the spotlight for years, and his dance moves were the stuff of legends. Janet, though talented, was still carving out her own place in the music world. This dance-off would put her in direct competition with a man who had changed the face of pop music forever. But this wasn't about competition in the usual sense. For Janet, this was an opportunity to prove herself. Not to anyone else, but to herself. To show that she was more than just Michael's little sister. That she had her own unique style and ability to captivate the audience in a way that was distinctly hers. As for Michael, there was no doubt in his mind that he would give it his all. He had never shied away from a challenge, and the thought of facing off against Janet, someone he cared deeply about, made the prospect even more exciting. Despite their playful banter and the growing sense of rivalry, Michael couldn't deny that he admired his sister's talent and determination. He had watched her grow over the years, from a young girl with dreams of her own to a woman standing on the brink of stardom. Despite the challenge, there was a deep sense of respect between the two siblings. Michael knew that Janet had the drive and the skill to go toe-to-toe with him on the dance floor. She wasn't just his little sister anymore, she was a force in her own right. And for Janet, dancing alongside Michael, even in a playful competition, would be a dream come true. She had always looked up to him, admired his creativity, and even learned from him. To dance alongside him would be an unforgettable experience, one that would allow her to showcase everything she had worked for. As the day of the gala drew closer, the tension grew. The challenge was no longer just a playful thought, it had become an event in itself. The media caught wind of it, and the excitement began to build. Fans, who already adored both Janet and Michael for their musical and dance talents, couldn't wait to see what would unfold. The idea of witnessing these two incredible artists, both so gifted and unique in their own ways, competing on stage in a live, unscripted dance-off was thrilling. The anticipation was palpable. On the night of the event, everything seemed to fall into place. The gala was as glamorous as ever, with guests arriving in stunning attire, and the venue filled with the kind of star-studded atmosphere you would expect from an event of this magnitude. But there was a certain undercurrent of excitement in the air. Everyone was talking about the upcoming dance-off. The buzz was everywhere, and even those who didn't know much about Janet or Michael were intrigued by the spectacle that was about to unfold. Backstage, Janet and Michael were preparing for their performances. Janet had been practicing her routine for weeks, perfecting each move with precision. She knew the dance-off would be a challenge, but she was ready. Meanwhile, Michael, ever the professional, was focused and determined, knowing this event would be something that would stay with both him and Janet for the rest of their lives. And so, the stage was set. It was no longer just a playful idea. It was now a reality, and the world would soon witness one of the most unforgettable moments in music history. The sibling rivalry, the love, the respect, and the undeniable talent of both Janet and Michael were about to collide in a way that no one would ever forget. It wasn't just about who would win, it was about the incredible bond they shared, and how that bond would create an unforgettable moment on stage that would be talked about for years to come. As the lights dimmed and the music began to play, the audience held their breath, waiting for the showdown to begin. As the day of the charity gala approached, the excitement backstage grew. There was a mix of energy and tension in the air. Janet and Michael were both getting ready for the dance-off that had turned into something much bigger than anyone could have imagined. What started as a playful challenge between siblings had now become one of the most anticipated events of the night. The rehearsals were no less intense. Janet had always taken her craft seriously. Dance was her passion, and she knew that if she wanted to hold her own against her brother, she had to give it her all. For weeks, she had been practicing tirelessly, working with her choreographers to perfect every move, every step. Janet knew that Michael had already set the bar incredibly high with his signature moves like the moonwalk, and she didn't want to be just another dancer trying to mimic him. She wanted to show the world her own unique style, a combination of sharp, precise movements and smooth, fluid choreography that would captivate her audience. Her rehearsals weren't just about learning new steps, they were about perfecting her timing, her facial expressions, and the way she carried herself on stage. She would spend hours in front of mirrors, making sure that every turn, every flip of her wrist, and every sway of her hips looked just right. Dance for Janet wasn't just about looking good. It was about feeling the music, connecting with it, and letting it move through her. This was how she had always approached dancing, with heart, energy, and soul. But this time, it was different. She wasn't just dancing to her own rhythm, she was preparing to go head-to-head with Michael. Meanwhile, Michael was also deep into his preparations. He had spent years honing his skills, and his reputation as one of the greatest dancers in the world was something he took very seriously. But this wasn't just another performance for him. This was a chance to show the world that he was still at the top of his game, even as his little sister was beginning to make waves of her own. Despite his natural confidence, Michael was determined to give it his all. He wasn't about to let Janet steal the spotlight from him, even though he deeply respected her talent. He had been there when she was just starting out, and watching her grow into the performer she had become filled him with both pride and a sense of competition. For Michael, the rehearsals were intense but focused. He spent hours in the dance studio, perfecting his routines. He would practice his moonwalk over and over until it looked as smooth and effortless as it had during his Thriller days. His choreographers worked tirelessly with him, adjusting his footwork and arm movements until everything was seamless. Michael wasn't just going to show up and dance, he was going to put on a show. One that would leave everyone in the room speechless. And though he didn't admit it, he knew that his younger sister would be an impressive rival. As the days passed, both Janet and Michael could feel the pressure mounting. They were no longer just two siblings preparing for a performance, they were two artists in the midst of a battle, each determined to outshine the other. But as much as they were pushing themselves, there was also a sense of camaraderie between them. They both knew how much effort it took to get to this point. Janet would often drop by Michael's rehearsal space, offering him a wink or a smile, and he would do the same. It was a way of showing respect, a reminder that, no matter what happened on that stage, they were still family. But there were moments, too, when they would share a competitive glance. Michael would sometimes look at Janet after watching her practice her routine and think to himself, "She's really good." Janet, on the other hand, would watch Michael perform his iconic moves and feel the same. "He's amazing," she would think, but then remind herself that this was her moment too. She wasn't going to let her brother's fame intimidate her. The rivalry, though friendly, was definitely present. Though filled with shared laughs and occasional words of encouragement, were also filled with the unspoken challenge. Who could be the better dancer? The tension was palpable, but neither one of them ever let it get in the way of their mutual admiration. They knew that, in the end, they were both there because of their love for dancing and performing. This wasn't just about one of them winning, it was about showing the world how much they both had to offer. As the hours went by, Janet's choreographers pushed her to refine her moves even further. They worked on every detail, the way she transitioned between steps, the way her body flowed with the music, and even the smallest facial expression. Janet knew that every little thing mattered. The moment she stepped onto that stage, everything would be on display for the world to see. And she wanted to leave a lasting impression. She wanted to show that she wasn't just Michael's sister, she was Janet Jackson, a force to be reckoned with in her own right. For Michael, rehearsals were a bit different. While Janet was focused on refining the details of each move, Michael's focus was on perfecting his overall performance. His rehearsals often looked like full-on performances, with lights, cameras, and his backup dancers by his side. His choreography was more complex than ever before, with intricate footwork and smooth transitions that were designed to wow the audience. As always, Michael's performances were about more than just dancing, they were about storytelling. He wasn't just moving to the music. He was telling a story with every step, every twist, and every spin. As the rehearsals continued, the rest of the dancers in the building began to notice something special. Both Janet and Michael had that intangible quality that made them stand out. It wasn't just their dancing that was impressive. It was the way they commanded the room, the way their movements seemed to come alive. The more they practiced, the more it became clear that no matter who won the dance-off, the real victory was going to be the performance itself. Janet and Michael were both exceptional, each with their own style and flair, and the audience would be lucky to witness what was about to happen. But the pressure wasn't just on them as performers, it was also on their teams. Janet's dancers, knowing how important this performance was to her, gave everything they had to help her shine. They worked tirelessly alongside her, perfecting every routine, every combination of moves. Michael's team, too, was hard at work, ensuring that everything was flawless for his big moment. The atmosphere backstage was filled with anticipation, and everyone was eager to see what the Jackson siblings would bring to the stage. Finally, the night of the gala arrived, and both Janet and Michael were ready. They were exhausted from the weeks of rehearsals, but the adrenaline had kicked in. They knew that all their hard work had led them to this moment, the moment where they would take the stage and give their best performances. It was no longer just about the rivalry. It was about the shared passion they had for dance, music, and performance. They were about to create something unforgettable, and they knew that no matter what happened, they would walk away from this experience with a new level of respect for each other and for their craft. The challenge was set. The stage was theirs. And soon, the world would witness one of the most exciting moments in the history of pop music. But for now, all they could do was focus on the steps ahead, trusting in the rehearsals, and knowing that when the music played, they would both give it everything they had. The night of the charity gala had finally arrived, and the excitement backstage was palpable. The buzz in the air was undeniable, as guests and celebrities alike eagerly anticipated the much-discussed dance-off between Janet and Michael Jackson. What had started as a playful challenge between siblings had grown into one of the most anticipated moments of the evening. Everywhere you looked, people were talking about it. As the gala got underway, the elegant venue was alive with music, laughter, and conversations. The lights shone brightly on the guests, who were dressed to impress, while a live band played soft tunes in the background. The mood was festive, but beneath the surface, there was a feeling of anticipation. It was clear that the real event of the night wasn't the dinner, the speeches, or even the awards. It was the face-off between the two Jacksons. For Michael and Janet, the evening was filled with both excitement and nerves. The spotlight was on them in a way it hadn't been before. They had performed on countless stages. But this was different. This was a rare, unplanned challenge between two of the most iconic artists in the world. This was about proving their skills, their creativity, and their passion for dance to an audience that was ready to witness something extraordinary. As the night continued, people eagerly waited for the moment when the challenge would officially begin. The host of the event, a well-known celebrity, finally stepped onto the stage, and the crowd grew silent with anticipation. He introduced the dance-off, calling it the moment everyone had been waiting for. His words sent a wave of excitement through the audience. The host explained that Janet would go first. She had always been known for her energy, her charisma, and her ability to own the stage. As she walked to the center of the stage, the crowd erupted into applause. She was dressed in a sleek, modern outfit that allowed her to move freely, and her confidence radiated. It was clear from the moment she stepped onto the stage that she was ready. She took a deep breath, the music began to play, and the world watched as she launched into her routine. Her movements were sharp and precise, each step carefully choreographed but still full of energy. Janet's style was a perfect mix of control and fluidity. She seemed to glide across the stage with ease, every move perfectly in sync with the rhythm of the music. Her face was a picture of focus and intensity, but there was also a playful spark in her eyes, as if she were daring anyone to doubt her skills. She wasn't just dancing to the music, she was owning it, turning every beat into a new opportunity to showcase her talent. As Janet's performance continued, the crowd became even more captivated. She was on fire, and it was clear that she wasn't holding back. She twirled, spun, and jumped with precision, her body moving in perfect harmony with the rhythm of the song. The energy she brought to the stage was undeniable, and her connection with the music was visible in every single movement. When Janet finished her routine, the audience erupted in applause. She had delivered a performance that was powerful, dynamic, and unforgettable. It was clear that she had poured everything she had into this moment, and the crowd appreciated every second of it. Janet flashed a confident smile as she exited the stage, knowing she had given her best. But now it was Michael's turn. The king of pop was no stranger to the spotlight. And as he walked to the stage, the atmosphere shifted. His reputation as one of the greatest performers of all time had preceded him, and the crowd was eager to see if he could match or even outshine his younger sister's performance. Michael took his place in the center of the stage, his every movement exuding confidence and experience. He wore a classic black outfit, a fedora perched on his head, and his signature white glove on his right hand. The crowd hushed in anticipation as the music began. From the very first step, it was clear that Michael was in complete control of the stage. His movements were fluid and smooth, almost as if he were floating rather than walking. As he moved to the beat, he effortlessly slid across the stage, his iconic moonwalk leaving the audience in awe. Michael's ability to glide backward as if he were walking forward was nothing short of magical. It was a move that had become legendary, and seeing it live was an experience that took everyone's breath away. But Michael wasn't just about the moonwalk. His choreography was complex, sharp, and precise. He combined intricate footwork with smooth body movements, making it seem like he was one with the music. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated, but there was also an undeniable fluidity to his performance. Michael's ability to switch from sharp, quick motions to smooth, slow transitions was what made his dancing so unique. He had perfected the art of balancing precision with style, and it was evident in every part of his routine. The crowd was completely captivated by his performance. As Michael danced, the energy in the room grew, and by the time he finished, the applause was deafening. His performance was everything people had come to expect from the king of pop: flawless, effortless, and breathtaking. But even as he took his bow, there was a sense that the true magic of the evening had yet to come. The tension between the two siblings was still very much alive, and the energy between them seemed to crackle in the air. Now came the moment everyone had been waiting for: the final round. This wasn't just a competition anymore. It was a chance for both Janet and Michael to showcase their artistry in a way that only they could. They had both given incredible performances, but the true test was whether they could come together and create something even more magical. As the host announced that the siblings would now dance together, the crowd erupted in excitement. Janet and Michael took their places in the center of the stage, facing each other. For a moment, they just stood there, looking at each other with a mixture of determination and mutual respect. There was no more rivalry now, just two artists who were about to share the stage in a way that no one had ever seen before. The music began to play, and for the first time that evening, the siblings synchronized their moves. Janet led with her sharp, precise style, and Michael followed with his smooth, fluid movements. They danced together in perfect harmony, blending their styles in a way that was unexpected but mesmerizing. The way they complemented each other, effortlessly switching from one move to the next, left the audience in awe. It was a dance-off, yes, but it was also a celebration of their talent, their connection, and their shared love for performance. For a brief moment, they both seemed to forget about the competition altogether. It wasn't about who was the better dancer anymore. It was about the magic they created together. The audience was caught up in the energy between them, mesmerized by the way they fed off each other's movements, the way their chemistry lit up the stage. The performance wasn't just about two individuals. It was a collaboration, a perfect blend of two distinct styles, two incredible talents coming together to create something unforgettable. When the music finally came to an end, the crowd was on its feet, applauding and cheering wildly. The performance had been a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and everyone in the room knew they had just witnessed something truly special. Janet and Michael, out of breath and smiling, took a bow together. There was no need for a winner. Everyone knew they had both won in their own way. They had each shown the world their extraordinary talent, and together, they had created a moment that would go down in history as one of the most memorable performances ever seen on stage. The night wasn't just about competition, it was about family, respect, and the shared joy of dancing. Janet and Michael had both given everything they had, and in doing so, they had created something that would be talked about for years to come. The energy in the room was electric, and everyone left the gala knowing they had just witnessed something truly unique. The Jackson siblings had not only dazzled the world with their talent, but they had reminded everyone of the incredible bond they shared as artists and as family. The room was buzzing with excitement as Janet and Michael took the stage for the final round of their highly anticipated dance-off. The energy in the air was palpable, thick with the kind of electric tension that only comes when two legendary performers share the same spotlight. People had been waiting for this moment all evening, eagerly discussing what was about to unfold. Everyone knew they had already witnessed two incredible performances, but now, with the siblings coming together on stage, the expectations had risen even higher. This was the moment where everything would culminate. The host's voice rang out over the loudspeakers as he introduced the final round, a challenge that would see Janet and Michael face off in an unscripted dance-off. There were no pre-arranged steps, no rehearsed choreography. It was all about who could impress the audience in the rawest, most authentic way. The crowd fell into a hush, the anticipation reaching a fever pitch. This was not just about technique anymore. It was about heart, passion, and the sheer will to give everything for the performance. As the music began, Janet and Michael locked eyes. In that brief moment, there was a shared understanding between them. No words were needed. This wasn't a contest in the traditional sense. Yes, they would each try to outshine the other, but it was more than that. This was an expression of their love for music, their love for dance, and their mutual respect for each other's talent. There was no bitterness, no anger, just two artists who understood the stakes of this moment and were about to give their all. Janet went first, diving right into the music. Her movements were sharp, controlled, and yet full of life. She moved with precision, each step deliberate and powerful. Janet had always been known for her flawless choreography, and she brought that same level of expertise to this challenge. She blended different styles, seamlessly moving between pop, hip-hop, and contemporary dance with ease. She twirled, leaped, and snapped into positions that left the audience in awe. Every move was a statement, a clear demonstration of her strength and skill. Her face was full of determination, but there was a playful glint in her eyes, too, as if she was inviting Michael to keep up. The energy she exuded wasn't just physical, it was emotional, a reflection of the years she had spent carving out her own place in the industry. She wasn't just dancing for herself, but for everyone who had ever doubted her. For everyone who had ever told her she was just another Jackson. Tonight, she was proving them all wrong. Janet wasn't just in the shadow of her brother's fame, she was standing tall on her own, showing the world that she was every bit as talented, every bit as powerful. As the music changed rhythm, Janet transitioned effortlessly, adding layers of complexity to her routine. She was a master at controlling her body's movements, making everything appear effortless even though she had worked tirelessly for this moment. The crowd responded in kind, their applause growing louder with each new move she executed. Janet had their attention, and she was determined to keep it. Then, as the song reached its peak, it was Michael's turn to take center stage. He stood there for a brief moment, feeling the weight of the crowd's eyes on him. Michael had performed in front of millions, but tonight felt different. This wasn't just about being the king of pop. It was about showing up for his sister, for their shared love of dance, and for everything they had been through together as family. He had always prided himself on being an innovator, someone who could push the boundaries of performance. Tonight, he wasn't going to let his younger sister steal the show. He was going to meet her head-on, with everything he had. The music shifted again, and Michael leapt into action. He was immediately in his element, gliding across the stage with his signature smoothness. His movements were slick and fluid, as though he was gliding on air. Michael wasn't just dancing, he was telling a story with every step, drawing the audience into his world with his natural charisma. His moonwalk, the move that had made him a legend, made its appearance, and the audience gasped as he executed it with his usual grace. The way his feet moved backward, while his body stayed forward, was mesmerizing, a move that seemed to defy gravity itself. But Michael wasn't just about the moonwalk. He was a master of energy and movement. He would shift from slow, controlled movements to sudden bursts of speed, making every transition seem effortless. His choreography was like a conversation with the music, a back-and-forth dialogue between his body and the beat. Michael was a perfectionist, always seeking to improve and innovate. Every time he performed, he pushed himself to new limits, and tonight was no different. His routine was packed with new elements, new tricks, and bold moves that no one had seen before. The audience was in awe, their cheers growing louder and louder as he brought them on a ride through his iconic dance moves. Michael had an uncanny ability to make complex choreography look simple. He could make the hardest moves seem like second nature. And that was part of his magic. He could take something difficult and turn it into art, turning every step into something beautiful. Every leap, every spin was met with applause. There was no question that Michael had earned his place as one of the greatest dancers of all time. But now, as the final round continued, something unexpected happened. Janet and Michael, without even speaking, seemed to instinctively recognize that it was time for something special. The music changed again, slowing down to a more soulful rhythm. They took their places on stage, standing side by side. For a brief moment, the rivalry seemed to vanish, replaced by something deeper, a shared understanding of their craft, of what they had each worked so hard to achieve. They were no longer two competitors, they were two siblings, two artists, coming together to create something unforgettable. Without warning, they began to move together. Janet took the lead, with her sharp, precise movements, and Michael followed with his signature smoothness. Their bodies flowed together, weaving in and out of each other's steps, creating a performance that was both synchronized and fluid. There was something truly magical about seeing them work together, their styles complementing one another in a way no one could have expected. Janet's powerful, controlled movements perfectly balanced Michael's fluidity and grace. Together, they seemed unstoppable. The crowd watched in stunned silence before erupting into applause. It was as if the entire room had been swept away by the magic of their performance. The tension that had hung in the air earlier was gone, replaced by an overwhelming sense of unity between the two stars. They were no longer two rivals, they were a team, and their combined energy was something that could not be denied. As they finished their routine, they stood side by side, breathing heavily, smiling at each other. The applause from the audience was deafening. And for a moment, Janet and Michael just looked at each other, sharing a quiet understanding. They had done it. Together, they had created something that no one would ever forget. The rivalry that had fueled their performances had been replaced by mutual respect, a respect that would stay with them for the rest of their careers. When the music stopped, they both raised their hands, signaling the end of the performance. There was no need for words, everything had been said through their movements. The audience's applause was not just for their individual talents, but for the incredible bond they shared as siblings, as artists. It had been a performance like no other, and the world would remember it as one of the greatest moments in the history of dance. The ultimate showdown had not only showcased their skills, but also the love, respect, and unity that ran deep between them. The stage lights finally dimmed, and the music came to a soft stop. Janet and Michael stood side by side, sweat glistening on their foreheads, breathing heavily, but smiling wide. The crowd was in an uproar, their applause echoing through the venue. For a moment, both siblings stood in silence, soaking in the love and admiration that filled the air. The energy was undeniable, and the bond between them stronger than any rivalry was clear to everyone in the room. They had just given the performance of a lifetime. As the applause continued, they turned toward each other, exchanging a look of mutual respect and admiration. There was no need for words between them at that moment. The battle, if there ever was one, was over. It had never truly been about winning or losing. It had been about celebrating their talents, their connection, and the unique energy that only siblings who shared the same passion could create. In that moment, they weren't just Michael and Janet Jackson, icons of pop and dance. They were simply two artists, two siblings, who had just experienced something truly magical together. Backstage, the buzz was just as loud. Dancers, choreographers, and guests alike were still talking about the incredible performance they had just witnessed. Word had already started spreading about the legendary face-off, and soon the media would be abuzz with the details. Footage from the performance was already being recorded and shared on social media, and the excitement surrounding it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The world was watching, and the Jacksons had delivered. But for Janet and Michael, the moment wasn't about the headlines or the attention. It was about the experience they had just shared. As they walked off the stage, Janet turned to Michael with a grin. "That was something else," she said, her voice filled with both pride and relief. "You really brought it." Despite the competitive nature of the dance-off, there had always been a deep sense of respect between them. Michael had spent his life at the top of the music world, a place that seemed almost unreachable to many. But Janet had earned her place too. She had worked hard to carve out her own identity in the industry, not simply as Michael's sister, but as a powerhouse in her own right. Tonight, she had shown the world that she wasn't just a shadow to stand in. She was a star, shining brightly and demanding attention. For Michael, there was a quiet sense of pride in seeing his sister hold her own. He had always believed in her talent, but to see her step onto the stage and deliver such a powerful, electrifying performance made him proud in a way that words couldn't express. As much as he was known for his groundbreaking moves, tonight, it was clear that Janet had something special, too. And while Michael was often seen as the undisputed king of pop, that night had shown the world that there was room for more than one Jackson to dominate the stage. The media, of course, went wild. The dance-off between the two siblings became the talk of the town, with every outlet eager to get their take on what had just transpired. Journalists wrote articles, fans tweeted and posted online, and reporters filled the airwaves with excitement. But amidst the chaos of interviews and speculation about who had won, there was an overwhelming sense of admiration for both Janet and Michael. The truth was, no one could declare a clear winner. The face-off had been a beautiful blend of their individual talents, a perfect balance of precision and fluidity. Janet's sharpness had complemented Michael's smoothness, and Michael's experience had allowed him to match his sister's youthful energy. The performance wasn't about outshining the other. It was about working together to create something that felt bigger than the two of them. The love, respect, and sibling bond that they shared had transcended the competition. The audience didn't need to pick a winner. They had witnessed something rare, something that couldn't be replicated. As the evening came to a close, the Jacksons found themselves back in the quiet of their dressing rooms. The world outside, still buzzing with excitement. Janet was seated, her head leaning back against the mirror as she caught her breath. She was exhausted but exhilarated, her mind still racing with everything that had just happened. Michael, standing near the window, smiled as he watched his sister. He could tell she was processing the night's events just as he was. It had been a big moment for both of them, one that they would both look back on with pride. "I think this is the start of something," Janet said, breaking the silence. "Not just for us, but for the world. People need to see that we're more than just names. They need to see what we're capable of." Her voice was steady, but there was an undeniable spark of determination in her words. Michael nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. We've always been more than just a family name. This was about showing who we really are." And in that moment, both Janet and Michael knew that they had just done something that went beyond just music and dance. They had shared a moment of art, one that would be remembered for years to come. They had pushed each other, challenged each other, and in the process, had grown even more as artists and as siblings. Their performances that night were a testament to everything they had worked for: their creativity, their passion, and their unbreakable bond. As time went on, the dance-off would become a legendary moment in pop culture. People would remember the night when Janet and Michael Jackson faced off in a dance battle that captivated the world. But it was more than just a competition. It was a celebration of their individual journeys, the dedication they had both shown to their craft, and the powerful connection they shared as siblings. The world had seen their skills on full display, but they had also seen something even more powerful: their love and respect for each other. The legacy of that performance would live on in the hearts and minds of fans for generations. Janet, who had always been in her brother's shadow, had stepped into her own light that night. Michael, though a legend in his own right, had been reminded of the immense talent his sister possessed. The dance-off had not only elevated both of their careers but had strengthened their bond as family and artists. And while the world would always see Michael as the king of pop, that night, the world also saw Janet for who she truly was: a force in her own right, ready to take on the world. Their faces, once seen only together, were now recognized as symbols of strength, talent, and unity. Their legacy, born of years of hard work and artistic passion, would inspire future generations to chase their own dreams and to never be afraid of stepping into the spotlight no matter who stands beside them. The night had ended, but the impact of that legendary dance-off would last forever. The Jacksons had left their mark on the world, not just as siblings, but as two of the most influential artists of all time. Their shared moment on stage was proof that family, love, and a shared passion for music could create something greater than competition. It could create history.